this up somehow.
What's up, Live Me? What's up, YouTube? Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. Sorry we're a couple minutes behind, but just a few. Good morning, Cupid. Good morning, Cyber Gypsy. Good morning, Teen Hug. I read it. I saw it. It was the screen name was Dino. Good morning. How are you? And good morning, YouTube. Good to see everybody. Joe, what's up? Good to see you, Joe. Cisco, good morning. Levitris, Zach, hello. Everybody on YouTube, hello. We are joined today by Alison Hudson. Alison, say hello.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Alison's on her phone. She's having an issue with her laptop. So she is on borrowed computers, which you guys all know how scary and painful that is. So please bear with Alison through this difficult time. I know that that's so hard when you have someone else's technology you're relying on. So she's on her phone. But yeah, we're gonna be plowing through. We already got Live Me. We got 16. YouTube, we already got the 30, which means we're just gonna go ahead and jump in here. So Alison, I'm gonna explain to you and anybody that's new here what's going on and how we orchestrate this. So the people that are watching over on the Live Me, they can not see you, they can just hear you. The people that are watching you over on the YouTube, they can see you and hear you. But the Live Me folks get the first option of questions. They get to ask you questions as quick as possible because I see it pop up on the screen. So what I'm going to do is while you're talking, I'm going to do my best to make sure my mic stays muted because I can't use headphones because the Live Me folks need to hear you that way. But I'm going to mute my mic the best I can so it doesn't bleed over at any point. And also, throughout this interview, when you see me kind of looking around and stuff, it's not because I'm not listening or that I'm distracted. It's because I'm trying to field questions and organize them the best I can, and they're coming at me from 2 different platforms. So I'm doing the best I can to keep everything organized. So that's the drill. So people are going to start sending questions in. Live Me folks, get your questions ready. YouTube folks, get your questions ready. We have Alison Hudson, who is running for Senate here in California. And Alison, if you would, please give a skinny on what you're all about.
The skinny, huh? Ron, should I put headphones on? Will you be able to hear me better?
Yeah, if you got them, throw them on. Yeah, it it can't hurt.
Okay. How's this?
We can hear you a lot better.
That's way better. Okay,
we can hear
good.
You a lot better, yeah.
I'm on my 3rd device, everybody.
It's dedication. We appreciate it. We appreciate it very much.
I'm fortunate to have the options. All right, so my name is Alison Hudson. I'm running for U.S. Senate against Leon Feinstein. And most recently, I was the national director of a nonprofit political organization called WolfPAC. And WolfPAC's sole goal is to get an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that will get big money out of politics in order to address the root cause of all of the issues that we're fighting for, which is the corrupting influence of money in our political system. So the goal is to overturn Citizens United and related cases. And I started out as a volunteer there. I was a teacher prior to working with WolfPAC. I taught public high school and I taught senior English. I also designed and taught an intervention program for students who are at risk of not graduating high school. And it was through my experience there, working in a low-income district, serving primarily 1st and 2nd generation students from Mexico, where I saw the effects of the rigged economy on this neighborhood even more than I did so with my own working class family. And it was through that experience that I really got involved in the movement of getting money out of politics. I became the California State Director of WolfPAC as a volunteer. I organized thousands of volunteers throughout the state of California. Together, we led the successful passage of our measure through the legislature. Then I did the same thing in New Jersey and Rhode Island. And, eventually I became the national director and we passed it through now 5 states. We have a chapter in almost all 50 states now of volunteers throughout the country. And I recently stepped down from that position in October in order to run for U.S. Senate because it was my experience there in WolfPAC where I saw that if we're going to get the policies passed that we need to, we really are going to have to do it ourselves. And that includes getting this amendment to the US Constitution that will allow us to get all of the other policies we need, including Medicare for all and free public college and higher education and preschool and living wages tied to inflation and a green economy. So I'm really excited to be able to do all of this and hopefully as soon as less than a year.
All right. So we're already getting some questions, so we're just going to jump right into to some submitted questions here. Some of them are lighter, some of them are heavier, and we're just going to kind of go in order the best we can. DC wants to know, what is your stance on cannabis legalization and the Marijuana Justice Act?
I am fully in support of legalizing marijuana. I also believe we should legalize drugs and we'll basically decriminalize them. I would like to see us restructure the entire system that we have for categorizing drugs. And Dianne Feinstein in particular, she is against legalizing marijuana. She led a charge against the legalization as recently as 2010 against a ballot reform initiative on that. So, you know, it is something that affects our poorest communities, our communities of color in particular, and it costs us quite a bit of money. The money that we could save by legalizing marijuana in terms of the taxes that we could bring in from this, and I mean, it upwards of millions or billions actually. What this can do for people's health, helping people to get off of harsher drugs that are addictive. There's a host of benefits to it. And so I fully support doing this. And we have to do this at the federal level in order to protect our state laws in order that are allowing us to move forward in legalizing it. Congratulations, California.
All right. So Convo Couch wants to know, which thank you very much for the super chat contribution. Convo Couch wants to know, what is your stance on Russia?
My stance on Russia. I am really sick and tired of this distraction with Russia from what is happening here in our country domestically, from all of the other issues that we need to talk about. Yes, I think that we do in fact need to continue with the investigation, let it play out, let's see what happens. And anybody who meddles in our elections should, we really do need to protect the integrity of our elections. But let's talk about who else is meddling in our elections. How else our elections are negatively influenced, right? Superdelegates, gerrymandering, Hillary Clinton. So
the Electoral College.
Yes, thank you.
Nobody is like, no, even on the establishment Democratic side, no one's talking about the Electoral College. And I said this on the show too. You know, I'm not a big Hillary Clinton fan. Everybody knows that. And I don't think anyone watching this show is really. But she could have taken up a cause. Like, you know how like when Al Gore got screwed over in 2000, he took up a cause. Her cause could have been the Electoral College. She could have been like, you know what? This is a failed system. It can be traced back to slavery. It's something that should have been gone yesterday. And that's my cause now. And I would have been like, you know what? I'm not a fan of you. I never will be. But I respect that. That's a noble cause to take up now as the next chapter. Of course, she didn't do that. Instead, her cause was promoting herself. But that totally could have been the course of action she took. So yeah, thank you. Joe wants to know, have you had a chance to look at Bernie's Medicare for All bill? We know you're for single payer. Have you had a chance to look at the actual bill that Bernie Sanders has been working on?
I have been looking at it, and the Medicare, his Medicare for All bill, I do fully support it. You know, I've read through it, and honestly, like what I really appreciate about single payer, and this is important for people to really understand, is that we do need to have the government be able to negotiate drug prices. This will allow us to be able to pay our doctors and our nurses what they deserve. And Bernie Sanders does a really good job with the people that he works with to explain how this exactly works, having zero copay for us, ensuring that our medical needs are in fact met. And so that is something that I am looking forward to being able to co-sponsor and move forward. I read through it, and I have a doctor friend of mine who is so supportive of single payer, and I've asked him, to sit down with me and read through it as well, because I'm not a medical expert. I'm not a doctor, and I don't pretend to be a doctor. I know what we need in terms of making sure that we have a right to Medicare or to healthcare. I know that we can in fact afford it, and it's in fact going to save us a lot of money. I know that Dianne Feinstein does not have any idea how it works, or she pretends not to by repeating Republican talking points, and that is something that we have to make sure that people are very aware of. And I think that the community, the healthcare community moving forward on Medicare for All, is doing a really phenomenal job in pushing that forward, and California has been doing that, really leading the charge on that in particular.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it is stomach turning. Listen to Dianne Feinstein repeat literal right-wing talking points against single payer. And I don't think it's that she doesn't understand it. I think she gets a lot of money to not understand it. Yeah. I think that's going on. And that's why she really does need to go.
And it's her job to understand it.
Right. Balthazar, thank you so much for the contributions, Balthazar. We got a couple questions here, so I think this is a fun one for you. Thoughts on the Democratic support of single prayer?
Of single prayer?
Yeah, it's kind of like a play on, like they're not support a single payer, so instead they're just thoughts and prayers.
Oh, I hadn't heard that yet. Yeah.
Do you follow?
That's funny.
Do you follow the Peter Dow parody account on Twitter, Silly Rabbit?
No, I don't.
Oh, you got to follow that Twitter account. It's it's very funny. His newest hashtag it was so funny. I actually messaged him today and I was like, dude, I'll be honest, I'm a little jealous. His newest hashtag is still with herring, but he just spells it out, so it says still withering. So it's a play on words on multiple different levels, and I'm like, oh, that's really freaking funny. Balthazar also says, which Balthazar, thank you again so much for the contribution. The Electoral College, yet another college that's dumb and doesn't provide you with a usable degree. Voter cross-check, obviously. Stein. Platypus asks, what are your stance on wages? Which Platypus, by the way, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. What is your stance on wages?
We definitely need to keep pushing for a $15 minimum wage and tie it to inflation. By the time that we get it, I think it's going to have to be higher than $15. So one of the things I talk about really is making sure that it's a living wage. Right now, even with a living wage where it would be right now, you're still going to have. Did you watch the town hall this last Monday with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren?
Unfortunately, I missed it. Yeah, I missed it. And then I read about it after, so I was like, well, I guess I don't need to. I guess Warren made a lot of people not super happy, but I don't. Yeah, I didn't see it. So.
Oh, really? I haven't heard about that since. I haven't heard people talking about that, but you should definitely watch it. Anyways, one of they talked about so many important aspects of how wages and jobs are leading to income and wealth inequality, and in particular in terms of wages, how there is not a single state in the union where somebody making a minimum wage could afford a 2-bedroom house, even in a poorer state, or a more affordable state, low income state. So we have to make sure that we fight for this. But in order to do that, we also have to make sure that we are strengthening our unions and fighting for our unions. And so there's a lot around it beyond just making sure that we get that living wage. But it's going to take the might of our unions as well, and the way that the Supreme Court and Republicans in particular are chipping away at our unions. We have a big fight ahead of us. And so it's going to be really incumbent upon us to understand how exactly they're doing this with for example, the Janus case that is coming up with the Supreme Court. They haven't decided on it yet. But understanding that history and being able to talk about it and educate people about it is really important, because they are masterminds when it comes to the propaganda against our working class and against our unions.
All right. So Marcus wants to know, how will you deal with the wars?
One of the biggest problems that we're facing domestically is our bloated military budget. We are in, ever since Iraq, essentially, we have spent what is going to end up being $7 trillion. We've broken the Middle East. We are in wars in Syria and Yemen, and we're funding an arms race in the Middle East as well. It's not just about it's not, the biggest problem that we're facing is not just the military budget, but it's also the arms industry. So we have to stop our mentality of being a police for the world. And we have got to start really leading by example in terms of the way that we work and negotiate and talk to other countries in negotiating peace, and really striving for self-determination for all countries, including our own. This is tied to a green energy solution for our own country as well. But one of the things we need is what's called a BROC, a base realignment, essentially, in order to assess where in all of the countries that we have bases can we close down. That's going to save us a lot of money as well. Right now, we have bases in 30 warm water, or we have 30 warm water bases on U.S. territory. We have 25 other warm water bases. So in total, the U.S. has 55. We have plenty of ways that we could save money from our bloated military budget. There's also an act right now by Tulsi Gabbard to the Arming Terrorist Act, or Stop the Arming Terrorist Act that she has. I fully support that. We also need to repeal the AUMF, basically giving a blank check to the president to be able to put us into any war without congressional approval. So there are a number of things that we can do, and in order to cut our budget there. The reality is, when it comes to our domestic programs and the way that our Congress uses our tax system and our bloated military budget in order to justify cutting programs at home, this is one of the many reasons why we need to do that, so that we can really take care of our people. But it's also the way a country does its budgeting is its national morality. And the problem is, who is controlling our budget for these unnecessary, disgusting wars that we are engaged in? Who controls it? We are borrowing from the future in order to kill, just in Yemen alone, an estimated 10,000 civilians since 2015. So we really have to take a look at this from a moral perspective, from an economic perspective, and see ourselves as a global, not just a global economy, but a global humanitarian, peaceful movement forward together. And this includes our trade deals as well. When we're looking at the TPP and NAFTA, we have also got to be entering into these trade deals with the mind of being transparent and making sure that we are doing it to protect the workers in other countries as well as the working class here in our own country. So when we talk about, people over profit, for me, it's not just about for our country, it's about for the entire world, and every decision that we're making, whether it's a trade deal or war or a green new economy. And it really is all directly and indirectly connected to one another.
So we got a great answer, and we got a lot of questions in the queue. But I got to ask you this, because I've had Pat Harris on the show, I've had David Hildebrand on the show, And, I've asked them this question, so I got to ask it to you as well, just because for consistency's sake. Right now in the California Senate race, as you are aware, there's 3 progressives running in the race. You, Pat.
What? What? There are?
You, Pat, and David.
Yeah.
And I'll be totally honest. I think all 3 of you are wonderful. I'd be happy to vote for any one of you. I'd love to see all 3 of you in office in some capacity. However, all 3 of you cannot be in the Senate. It's only going to be one. So how do we avoid potentially splitting the progressive vote and, having the runoff be De Leon and Feinstein, which I don't think anybody wants to see. I really don't want to see that. And also, and again, I've asked them this, so I got to ask you too. If one of the 3 of you were to pull ahead, if it wasn't you, would you then drop out and support whoever it was, whether it was Pat or David?
Yeah. So, I have to say, first of all, as far as not splitting the vote and all of that, I get it, and that is an important question for us to be asking and for us to talk about. I do think it's still too early to make that decision. We're in March, right? And believe it or not, all of us here, everybody watching, we're very inside. Like, we're very, very politically active and aware of what's been going on. We've been watching this race and others for months. The vast majority of people still aren't in California. And so it really is still very early. So to your next question of if one of them were to pull ahead enough that it was clear that I was no longer a viable option, of course.
Again, totally a hypothetical. I know, absolutely a hypothetical. I'm just saying if that were to happen.
And so I think the question is really like, which of us, since we are so close on the issues, since we are progressive, since we don't take corporate money, which of us has the most viable campaign? And which of us really has a shot at being able to beat Dianne Feinstein in November? And right now it's about that viable campaign. And so I think it's too early to say. I definitely know that I have certainly proven that I have a viable campaign right now. And I'm just speaking about my own campaign. And so I'm still moving forward as a result. But yeah, it's still very early. And I also want to say that I think it is great that we have several progressive options. I mean, isn't that the future we're fighting for? Isn't that what we want to see?
Absolutely.
So to be able to, I think it's a positive thing. And I really wish that we could start talking about how this is what we want the world to look like, everybody. Now, I know what we really want and need is a better voting structure so that it doesn't split the vote so much. And it can really reflect what the population or the populace wants, the electorate, right? So we do that by abolishing the Electoral College, and we do it by instituting ranked choice voting or approval voting. My favorite is approval voting. But that's what we really need to be fighting for, so that we can, in fact, have a viable 3+ party options. Because I mean, we have more than 3 parties in this country.
Oh, absolutely.
So we need 3+. That's why I tend to throw that plus in there. But as of right now, I get the hesitation or the concern about splitting the vote. And so let's be aware of that. Let's all be conscious of that. But let's also not forget that there are millions and millions and millions of people in this state who still don't even know about this race or any of us. And so we still have a lot of work to do.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm totally with you. And yeah, I mean, that's a good way to look at it, where it's like, yeah, this is something we need to be aware of. This is something we need to, keep in mind. But the other side of it is, hey, there's 3 great progressives. No matter what happens, all 3 of them are going to have a future in politics. At least I think so, should you all choose to. And those are 3 great progressives in California for the future, in whatever capacity.
Yeah.
Let me ask you that. I mean, and again, just total hypothetical, but it's like, this is something that we've just had to unpack. Could you bring yourself, worst case scenario, it's De Leon and Feinstein. Could you bring yourself to vote for De Leon?
Yes, I think I could bring myself to vote for De Leon. And The reason why is because I think that Dianne Feinstein is running again so that when she steps down in the middle of her 6 years, the next person in their circle, this revolving door they have there in DC and in the state in some cases too, it will be appointed. It's not a special election. They're appointed by the governor. And that really concerns me. So I would rather elect Kevin De Leon, who is definitely moving a little bit more left because of our pressure on him. And I think can continue to, although I'm not happy about it. I will have to plug my nose and make that vote because we shouldn't have to beg our legislators to do the right thing. We need people in office who are already there, people who are already going to do the right thing. So that is obviously a great concern for me. I would, we would have to put a lot of pressure on him to reject his corporate donors and give the money back. I don't see that happening. So there's a number of things we could do to strategize together moving forward if we are in that unfortunate situation. But, if I have to answer that hypothetical question, there you go.
Fair enough. No, and I get it. All right. So next hypothetical. If you were being held underwater and your arm was... No, I'm just kidding.
I love it. I love hypotheticals. Go.
It's just something like, it pertains to the race. You are a candidate. So, it's something that I've unpacked. And we actually have invited De Leon onto this show. He has not accepted because I don't know if he's seen any of the videos, but certain candidates have not had the most positive experience on this show. So others have had great experiences. I just ask the questions and respond accordingly. But
are you like ripping out throats and taking names later or what?
I think I'm very fair. One of our prereqs is like, hey, tell the truth. And most people had an easy time following that. Some not as much. Also, we also were kind of like, if you're going to endorse somebody, be able to explain it. And again, some people, that was no problem for them following. You didn't have a problem with it. But other people, that was a little hard. So, what are you going to do? But for anyone just tuning in, we are talking to Alison Hudson by request. By the way, you were requested. When we ask about guests, your names come up a few times. It's like, how back in like the 80s, they had that Give Me My MTV. The Get Your News On With Ron folks were saying, give us our Alison Hudson. So we finally were able to make this happen. And Alison, of course, is running for Senate. We're talking about issues. We're talking about the race itself and what the future may look like and what we need to do strategy-wise. And it's been really fun. So we got a lot of questions, and we're backed up now because of me. It's my fault. Balthazar, thank you again for your super chat contribution. What's your stance on Congress people sitting on boards saying I'm not a scientist, doctor, etc., and still being able to serve on boards of science?
I have such a difficult. I'm so disgusted, and it is really a large part of the problem of what's happening in our country. So I can speak to that as a teacher. There are a lot of laws that have been passed down by people who have never stepped foot in a classroom as an educator, maybe as a student, but we have people who are not actually on the grounds as a teacher making decisions for that. And that's why, when people ask me questions about things that are not in my field, I think it's really important that we have to consult and work with the community of people who are the experts, but also what is an expert? So we also need to talk to the people who are on the ground in the fields that we're working in. So for example, when it comes to Medicare for all, we need to also be consulting the doctors and the nurses who are currently in those hospital rooms, who are currently in those doctors' rooms. I know that teachers who are in the classrooms right now are experiencing something very different than what teachers who have not been in the classroom for the last 20 years are experiencing. So really understanding how important that is to consult people who have the experience and the expertise is critical. And having a bunch of suit and ties making decisions for really important decisions that affect our lives in really real ways is a huge problem that must be addressed.
Right on. So Kimmy in the chat here says she's going to be phone banking for you on Sunday. So you got
Thanks,
some
Kimmy.
Yeah, that are tuned in right now. And Zev wants to know, do you support Chuck Schumer as the Democratic leader? And if not, who would you like to see?
No. Who would I like to see? Ro Khanna?
Yeah, there is no right or wrong answer. I mean, it's like, yeah, I like Ro too. I like Ro too. Tell
Tulsi
Ro how
Gabbard?
much fun you had on this show.
Yes, I will. Have you gotten a chance to reach out to him?
Pasta, the guy that helps me with the booking, he's reached out, but I haven't reached out to Ro individually in a little bit. We've talked about other things kind of recently, but I haven't been like, hey, you got to do my stream. But he ran into Pasta in San Diego and said he was into the idea. So hopefully we'll have him on. You know? He's a fun shit, like Ro.
Tulsi Gabbard's another really good option as well. It comes back to, I think all of us can agree that we don't have to agree with every single thing that every single person stands for or says, right? Not only would that be a boring world, it would be a very dangerous world. So I can disagree with things that of anybody that I would support being in leadership in our Congress. But I think most importantly, it comes down to really what are the foundational philosophies of that person and the policies that they support in particular that are led by their philosophies. And I really respect those two in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can also disagree on strategy too. That's something that I think, and hey, I'm guilty of that sometimes. We all are. We're all human. But, we can disagree
Getting your strategy wrong?
Oh, I've gotten my strategy wrong plenty of times. And I've maybe, come down on others harder than I should have and vice versa. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. We can disagree on strategy. At the end of the day, we still want the same things. And other times we don't. And we need to see the difference between people that have some different strategy ideas and people that genuinely don't want what we want.
Yeah.
And there is a big difference between those two things. One of them is okay and healthy. The other is what we shouldn't be supporting,
Right, right.
But so let's, we got a lot of stuff here. Balthazar, thank you again for your, oh wait, no, yeah, we did the Chuck Schumer one. Balthazar, thank you again for your contribution. You've been very generous today. Are you expecting any last minute shenanigans from establishment Dems in your race, like those that happen in the Newman versus Lupinski race? Another hypothetical for you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to always be on your toes in politics. One thing I learned, if I learned anything from my work in Wolfpack, it's that, you can have a plan one day and the very next day it is thrown in the trash and you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to adjust. And so am I expecting things? Yes. There's no way that the California Democratic Party is a very, very strong party here in California. I do not believe that they want a true progressive. And so are they going to try and do something, throw out some kind of shenanigans? Yes, of course. I couldn't tell you what they are, but we will, do our best to be prepared and to pivot as necessary.
So Platypus posted this and they said, could you vote like Australia? You wouldn't face as many issues, really should get the same ballot system, takes more time and thought, but worth it. Then they followed up because we brought up alternative voting methods, ranked choice, and approval. And they said, oh, she's good, answered my question as I posted it. So, yeah it's like it's gone to the future. Good job. Combo Couch, thank you.
One of my superpowers.
Combo Couch, thank you for the Super Chat contribution. Allison, who are you supporting for California governor? Have you made a decision yet?
No, I haven't. I'm not entirely excited. I'm not all that excited about the races that we have right now in terms of having like real true progressives. I think you had on one of the candidates for governor, right?
Yeah, Delane Easton. Yeah.
Delane Easton. Yeah, that's right. And you know, I really like her experience in education. And I think she's very strong. I met her once, and you know, it's hard to tell when you just meet somebody for a few minutes or whatever. But I'm, you know, I was really deflated after I heard that she would support Dianne Feinstein,
That
and
was,
not,
yeah.
you know, not as a personal thing against me. Like even if I wasn't in the race, it's just to be able to justify that because you like somebody personally or they're nice. I mean, it's kind of part of the job as not just somebody in politics, but somebody in the public sphere, or if you work in any job, if you're a boss somewhere, you're an employee, like your job is to be pleasant. And politicians learn how to do it really well. And so
Yes.
I'm sure.
Thank you. I've said that to some. I pretty much said that, and I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I
Cut
pretty
me off
much
all you
said,
want.
I said that exact same thing. I think I actually said that to her because, again, I was just like, well, why? And it was pretty much like, she's nice to me. And I'm like, yeah, she's a politician. They're all nice. They're really good at that.
Yeah,
even
it's
sat in the
hard.
White House, you would like to get a beer with him. Like, that's part of the gig. That's not, and whenever people would, oh, I know you're not a fan of Hillary, but you should meet her. Like, yeah, I'm sure I'd like her if I met her. Like, she's been doing the work for 30 plus years. I'm sure she'd be super nice to me. This isn't a personal thing. This isn't like, and yeah, and again, like, you know, that was one of the things I liked a lot of what she had to say.
Yeah.
Some things I wasn't a fan of. That was the thing I wasn't a fan of. And I mean, I don't know if you saw the video, but when we talked about it, I was just like, look, you can't just say, she had a nice story about guns and she was nice to me. That was the reason. And I was like, well, hey, there's three great progressives in that race that you're not even giving lip service to. So I think you need to do a little digging. And she said she was going to do that. So,
yeah,
you know, hopefully she will.
And hopefully she will. So, but you know, that just, you know, that kind of concerns me. I mean, I've seen people and I've experienced people looking you in the face one day, smiling, shaking your hand, joking around, and stabbing you in the back the next day. That's what happens in politics. And unfortunately, it creates this kind of negativity amongst politicians who don't ever trust anybody and are waiting to be the one to backstab the next person first. It's an extremely toxic culture, and it is what it is. It's something for us to make sure that we are aware of going into it. And so it's the fact that, you know, she said that just kind of made me kind of question if she's aware of what she's getting into in politics in particular, how that works. But other than that, I really like her policies. I think she has refused corporate money, which is important. Aside from that race in particular, you know, when it comes to corruption, I do want to say, like, it's not just money, it's also who we surround ourselves with. So it's power. And power comes in the form of money, but it also comes in the form of being kind of granted a certain kind of responsibility to make decisions for other people. And there is this kind of natural inclination for people to want to hang on to their power at any cost and to lose sight of reality and objectivity around that. And so I really do also look at not just if somebody's taking corporate money, but also what is their track record of being able to stand up against all kinds of pressures and propaganda that exists in this kind of like power vacuum that is the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, our government.
Preach it. Yeah, I'm with you. And politics, there is a ton of backstabbing. That's why I stay in show business where everybody has the utmost integrity. That's
what I've heard. Yeah.
Steven wants to know, which Steven, thank you very much for the super chat contribution. Do you support a universal basic income, Alison?
Yeah, I do support it. Then the more and more I read about it, the more excited I get about it. There are several ways that we can implement universal basic income, and you know, there are actually a couple cities here in California that are trying it. So I really like the fact, and I think New York is trying it. Some cities in New York are trying it as well. So I like that they're trying to see how it works. I hope they're implementing it right, so that we can show that it actually works. I think San Francisco has done something like $500 per person. One of the questions for me around universal basic income is, if you set a certain amount of money that everybody gets, do rich people also get it as well? And I don't think it has to be. In fact, I know it does not have to be that way. We could set it so that people making a certain amount and all the way down would get that, at least that basic income. But combined with that, I would also like to see a jobs guarantee program. And for those who are still learning about universal basic income, look into it. It is so fascinating. The studies are showing that counterintuitively, UBI actually motivates people to go out and get a job. So one of the concerns that people talk about is, well, if somebody just, gets handed this money, are they not going to want to go and work, and they're not going to be incentivized to go out and be productive members of society? And where UBI has actually happened, studies have shown that it does the opposite.
Yeah, you know why? Because people can go get a new suit. They can have it dry cleaned. They can. They have money for the bus or for gas to go get their resumes out there. And I mean, I know some people like they're like, oh, that's being nitpicking. No, it's not, because some people, when they're unemployed for a certain amount, they are really broke, and they might not
depressed.
And they might not live in an urban center. They might live in a rural area where they're literally just stuck in a rut, literally. It's like,
it's the cycle of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And when we understand how pervasive and systemic the cycle of poverty is, and how it affects us, from looking at it from a holistic approach, how it affects our psyche, how it affects our motivation, how it affects the way that we look at ourselves and then the world, when we actually have some sort of income to feel better about ourselves and to have hope, it actually does matter. It's proven to matter. To have confidence and hope to go out there and look for a job, to feel that you are worthy, really does matter. So UBI can go a long way to helping us to achieve that.
So Alison, thank you so much for continuing to be generous with your time. And guys, for anyone just tuning in or tuned in later, Alison is holding her phone for this, so that's
really, if you see my hands flailing, it's when I talk with my hands and I need to stop it, but also I've been shaking out my hands a lot.
Yeah, we appreciate it. She has an issue with her laptop. It's in the shop, so she is on her own phone. We got a lot of questions still, so we're going to do kind of a rapid fire round here because we only have so much time left. But forever voting third party brings up an interesting issue. Also, Kimmy points out that Oakland did a test run on universal income. And Forever Voting Third Party wants to know, I'm not finding it in the chat, so I'll just paraphrase it. I hope they don't mind. What are your thoughts on the relationship between the Department of Defense and the corporate media? I mean, now they're literally hiring defense experts to be commentators and so forth. Do you have some thoughts on that?
The corporate media, the Department of Defense, they're all in bed together. They're one and the same. And it is, I often think about when I'm talking about us making sure that we get corporate money out of our political system, what do we also need to do in order to address how the corporate media is influencing our politics as well, and corrupting our political system? So going back to the question of Russia, and we were saying, let's talk about everybody who is influencing, in the number of ways that our democratic system is, and our political system is influenced. The corporate media is one of the top problems that we have got to deal with. And thankfully, we have the internet, which is why we need to fight for net neutrality and understand just how important that is.
There's an upcoming question about that, ironically enough.
Oh, really?
Yes. Are you reading the chats? Be honest with us. Someone feeding you through the earpiece. They're like, this is coming up in the chat. He's going to say it. Mess with him.
Oh, you know what? I lost your, can you hear me?
Yes, I didn't have the mic unmuted. That happens
Oh,
from time to time. Yeah, yeah.
oh,
I
okay.
always try to make sure I mute it when you're talking, and yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were done. So, but yeah, we're good. We're good. So Balthazar wants to know, what are your three favorite upcoming races other than yours?
Well, I'm a Justice Democrat, so I'm really enjoying following the Justice Democrat races throughout the country. The Texas one that we just watched about, I think it was last week, was really exciting. The Illinois one happened just yesterday, so that's good. Here in California, in particular, my own house district, my representative is Rohrabacher. Are you familiar with him at all? He is like one of the Trumps of California. He's horrible. And so I'm looking at that race. It's District 49 US House, if anybody wants to look into that. We actually have two progressives running in here in Orange County where I live, which is well, it's very Republican here, but it's starting to move left. And there's two progressives running who don't take any corporate money.
There's a
That
few blue dots that never get any credit, like Laguna
Yeah,
Beach, and yeah, there's a few kind of bluish dots floating around.
there are. But I'll tell you what, when I went to go and file for my papers for candidacy, and it was due on like March 9th or something, so it was somewhat recently. I was sitting in the Orange County election office to do it, and I was surrounded by people talking about like praise Trump and his wall. These were candidates who were standing in line to run for office. And there's constantly something that reminds me why I'm here and why I'm running. And that was a moment. I
So
was
you're
like, this
saying
is why we're fighting.
it's concerning to you that there are candidates that want to treat the country like it's a game of The Sims. That's bothersome to you.
Yeah. I was
You purist.
I know. I was texting my team while I was in there, and I was like sending them like throw up symbols. I was like, "You guys, this is bad." Anyway, so that's one of the races. I am interested in. I'm following the governor race. The Secretary of State race as well is really interesting to me. Lieutenant Governor. Again, I'm not all that excited about all of the people who are running in them, but they're still interesting to follow. I think you're muted, Ron, unless I am.
I was talking to the Live Me folks.
Oh,
I do that
okay.
from
Oh, are
time
you
to time.
telling
Yeah,
them
yeah.
secrets about me? You're like,
No, no,
yeah, that's like your.
no. I was trying to arrange the questions because it's been going fast and people really want information from you. So it's
Another one is Doug Applegate. He is a Justice Democrat, and he this is the second time he's running, and he's really getting up there. He's running against Daryl Issa, I believe it is, and then there's Amar. Amar, I know his first name. Anyways, he's another Justice Democrat. He's running in San Diego, and he's running another against another corporatist. So there's a lot of good races and a lot of strong progressives who have really stepped up to the call to make California truly progressive, not just blue progressive, Bernie blue.
we just got a few. We just got time for a few more here. One is going to be another hypothetical, but it's a fun one. If you become Senator Alison Hudson, what committees interest you? What committees would you be interested in?
I would be interested in. Gosh, uh, I definitely want to sit on a committee that deals with election reform. And education reform. Education is combined with quite a few others, but those would be my top two, to address education specifically and to address election reform. I really want to. I'm going to introduce an amendment to the U.S. Constitution And that would likely go through the Judiciary Committee, but it would also go through the committee that would oversee that as well. Bernie Sanders introduced an amendment, by the way, to deal with getting that constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United and related cases. So we could look at that, but I would want to sit on the committees that are going to move that forward. That's my top priority.
So,
and you know, and this goes back to the question that somebody had asked earlier about making sure that we have people on committees in their expertise in their field. And so, you know, like I would be so fascinated to sit on a committee that deals with the environment. I would be fascinated to sit on a committee that deals with healthcare. But I certainly do not purport to be an expert in those fields. So my experience would be best left to overseeing education and dealing with election reform in particular.
Right on. So just to let you know, we have been getting a lot of compliments today. Lady Eve says this is the best interview I've ever heard on the show. Someone saying Allison is crushing it.
Thanks, Lady Eve. I love that. I love that name.
Yeah. So here, I think we only got time for one more here. This is kind of connected since you brought up net neutrality. What's your stance on municipal internet and municipal cell service?
I fully support it. I would love to see a world where we could just go to any park that we want, or go find a table or a bench somewhere, open up our laptop and hook up to the internet. Why does anybody have to own it?
Yeah.
And yeah, so
well, I was just going to say, one of the things that I, because I'm very passionate about net neutrality as well. And I say, look, building municipal broadband all around the country, that puts a nail in the coffin. They're not going to be able to come after it again. Because the internet is now public. So.
We should own it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fighting. I mean, I don't know if you got to see any of the coverage. We've been doing it over on the Jimmy Dore show, but we've shown up to Pasadena City Hall, and we've trying to rally the troops via the show, and it's something we're going to continue. Our mayor has refused to sign the petition for net neutrality. That's a national petition that Free Press is doing. So I plan on going back to City Hall again to find out why. So
good. That's great.
Are you willing to take one more?
Yes.
All right. So what would you say to somebody who used to be a Dem and after all the shenanigans that have gone on recently, refused to ever vote Democrat ever again? What would you say to that person?
I think that there are a lot of people right now who are really disgusted with having to run as a Democrat or vote for Democrats. But I think it's important that we understand the reality that we're in right now, that we have to work outside of the system and inside of the system in order to reform it. And that has really been the experience I've had working in politics as well, that both of those kinds of pressures from a strategic point of view are incredibly important. So if we really mean policy over politics and policy over party, let's ignore the party. Let's ignore the party name after their name, even if they're running as a Democrat, and really, really hold their feet to the fire on where they're taking, who's contributing to their campaign, and what are the policies that they believe in. And if we get the right people in, regardless of what letter they have after their name for the party that they are representing at that moment, if we get the right people in, we will be able to get the reform that we really need, which includes a 3+ party system and a much more democratic voting structure as well. So for me, it is strategic to even run for office right now so that we get the policies we need. It is strategic to run as a Democrat right now to get the policies that we need. And I think that we should all be really having that discussion about how this is a strategic maneuver for the future of our country. And for me personally, I'm giving the Democratic Party one more chance. That's it. Now, fortunately, and I don't mean one more chance as then they have a chance to prove themselves. I mean one more chance in terms of us being able to reform the Democratic Party, which includes making way for more parties. That's what I mean by that. Yeah. And so you know, I know it's really difficult for a lot of people, and it's honestly been really difficult for me too. I think the really good thing about California is our independents, who are no party preference, is a growing body of people who really get this, which is why they're willing to ignore party and really look at the person. And so I think that we have enough people in California who are going to be with us on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. It's and I say the same thing. I'm like, look, it's policy over party. If you're for the policies I'm for, and you know, you're not bought out, then you know, I'll give you a vote. I don't care what's next to your name. I mean, there's some people that are, you know, trying to enter the Republicans even. You know, I mean, Sam Ronan's trying to enter the Republicans as a progressive. So
you know,
and
approaches. And I think that you can be progressive regardless of party. I really do. I think it really comes down to your policies, and it comes down to your philosophies. It comes down to your character. And I know that there are a lot of really good Republicans out there who have been working in the Get Money Out movement here in California with like the Clean California Money campaign. There are Republicans who are so disgusted with what the Republican Party has turned into, but they, like some of the Democrats in the Democratic Party, are just holding down the fort to reform the party and really help people to understand that Republicans are people too, and that they're not all bad. It's the corporatists that are giving so many of us a bad name.
Absolutely. So, Alison, we are totally out of time. Thank you so much for doing
this. Yes, we are.
Please use this time to plug. How can people learn more about you? Where can they go? I know we got one of your phone bankers watching right now. If some people want to join her, like, how can they do that? Where can they learn more?
Simply go to my website, AlisonHudson.com, AlisonHudson. There, you're going to find out how you can volunteer. If you can't volunteer, how you can donate. We need all of it. And there are so many ways to get involved, whether it's 10 minutes a week or 10 hours a week. It's completely up to you. Every phone call matters. Every banner matters. Every T-shirt matters. Every door knock matters. And we have a growing force of volunteers throughout the entire state. Go to my website and see all of the events that are popping up. It's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Guys, we are totally out of time. Thank you so much for your amazing questions. Again, you guys,
thanks everybody.
Every interview. This has been Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? You guys tweet me articles. That's what we talk about. Or if we have a guest, you guys come up with the question. All those questions today, they were 95% you guys. And thank you so much for that. You guys asked some great questions, just like you always do. If you want to support this show more, please consider joining the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Placone, a pay what you can level. You get all kinds of exclusive content, free shows, free tickets to my shows. My album, when it comes out, is going to be delivered to your inbox. Party time. You know how to do it. We do this every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I will see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. Until then, stay safe in this crazy world of ours. And Alison, thank you once again.
Thanks for everything you do, Ron.
Cheers.